It started with a sound no one expected to matter, the crisp tear of a boarding pass being ripped in half. A noise that should have been small, private, routine. But in that moment, it echoed through gate B12 like a verdict. "Ma'am, you're in the wrong line," said the flight attendant, her voice polite enough to sound official, sharp enough to sting. The woman she was speaking to didn't argue. She just looked down at her torn ticket, seat 1A, first class, and then back up, eyes steady, unshaken. Around them, the hum of travel carried on, luggage wheels rolled, a child laughed, a boarding call droned overhead. Yet somehow, this corner of the gate felt heavier, slower, like the air itself had chosen sides. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Her name was Dr. Naomi Ellis, 42 years old, founder and CEO of Ellis Aerospace, one of the fastest growing defense tech firms in America, and a silent investor in the very airline she was standing in front of. But today, she wasn't Dr. Ellis. Today, she was just another black woman in jeans, a soft cotton sweater, and worn travel shoes. No entourage, no assistant, no symbols of wealth, only calm. That calm seemed to irritate Amanda, the senior flight attendant. "Miss, this section is for premium boarding," she said again, louder this time, as if repetition would make the insult legitimate. Naomi handed over what was left of her ticket. "It was premium," she said quietly. Amanda smirked. "Not anymore. It's been flagged." Brian, a younger attendant nearby, glanced over and chuckled. "Happens every week," he said. "Fake upgrades. People print at home. Looks real until we scan it." Naomi raised a brow. "Then scan it." Amanda hesitated, half smiling in disbelief, as if the request itself was audacious. "We don't need to waste time on that," she replied. "You can wait by the economy lane. We'll see if there's a seat left." Naomi didn't move. "You're suggesting I don't belong in first class," she said. The words weren't angry. They were factual, surgical, almost too calm. And that's what unsettled everyone. She wasn't fighting, she was diagnosing. A middle-aged white man behind her muttered, "She's holding up the line." Another added, "They should just call security." Amanda nodded toward them as if their discomfort justified her decision. "See? People are waiting." Naomi glanced back, meeting their eyes one by one. No anger, no plea, just a look that asked a quiet question. "Why do you agree so quickly with what you don't even understand?" "Miss, I'm giving you one last chance," Amanda snapped. "Step aside." Naomi's voice barely rose above a whisper. "You mean step back?" Amanda folded her arms. "Call it whatever you want." Brian took the crumpled ticket from Amanda's hand, tossed it into the trash bin beside the counter, and wiped his hands like he'd just disposed of something dirty. "All set," he said. "Next passenger." The silence that followed was the kind that rearranged a room. Even the PA system seemed to lower its volume, as if the airport itself was listening. Naomi stayed where she was. Behind her, a younger attendant, Maya Tran, her trainee badge still fresh, shifted uncomfortably. She had seen the ticket scan green moments earlier. "Amanda," she started, voice trembling slightly. "I think there's been—" Amanda shot her a look sharp enough to stop air. "Back to your post, Maya." But Maya's voice didn't fully vanish. It lingered in the space between right and wrong. "Her ticket was valid," she whispered. "I saw it." The words didn't travel far, but they were enough. A couple of passengers turned. One even started filming. Naomi exhaled once, steady, then reached into her bag and retrieved her ID. "Scan it," she said again, offering both her identification and her digital boarding receipt. Amanda crossed her arms, unmoved. "We've seen fake IDs too. Look, you can either take your seat in economy or step aside before we call someone." That someone meant airport security. It always did. And in that instant, Naomi understood exactly what game they were playing. The same game she'd seen at 25 when a loan officer told her she didn't look like a business owner. The same script, rewritten, repackaged, rehearsed over decades. She smiled, small, patient, lethal. "You know," she said softly, "if you're going to accuse someone of fraud, you should be very sure who you're talking to." Amanda blinked, confused by the composure. Brian scoffed. "Lady, don't threaten the crew. Just go sit where you belong." The phrase hit harder than any shove. Where you belong. Naomi took one slow step forward, not enough to invade space, just enough to make presence undeniable. "And where would that be?" she asked. No one answered. Amanda looked away. Brian fiddled with his tablet. The gate agent pretended to type something important, but the stillness was a verdict. Naomi's eyes dropped briefly to the trash bin where her ticket lay, torn in half among coffee cups and napkins. The symbol was almost poetic. That's when she whispered, not to them, but to herself. 5 minutes. That's all it ever takes for truth to surface. The boarding doors opened with a soft chime, and the gate agent announced, "Final call for Skyjet Flight 228 to Los Angeles. First-class passengers, please board now." The irony was electric. Amanda turned to wave forward the next line of travelers, but Naomi didn't move. She simply reached into her bag again, not for her wallet, not for her phone, but for something smaller, sleeker. A silver badge, no bigger than a business card, engraved with the logo of Ellis Aerospace. She held it at her side, unseen by most, visible only to the camera now filming from the back of the line. A storm was forming, quiet and precise. The kind that doesn't shout before it strikes. The terminal clock blinked. 5:37 p.m. Boarding for Skyjet Flight 228 had begun. Dr. Naomi Ellis stepped through the jet bridge without a word, her calm footsteps echoing against the narrow metal walls. Every sound seemed amplified. The buzz of fluorescent lights, the low murmur of passengers settling into their seats, the faint hum of the aircraft's systems warming for takeoff. The attendant at the door, Amanda, forced a smile that did not reach her eyes. "You again," she said under her breath, but loud enough for the man in 2B to glance up. Naomi did not respond. She simply handed over her passport and reissued ticket, printed hastily after the gate agent realized they had made an error. Amanda looked at the new ticket, then at Naomi's face, then back again. The silence stretched, thin and sharp. "Enjoy your flight," Amanda said finally, stepping aside. Her tone made the words sound more like an insult than a courtesy. Naomi walked in. The cabin was cold, air-conditioned to a precision that made comfort feel sterile. First class looked as polished as the commercials promised. Leather seats, champagne flutes, the scent of citrus disinfectant and privilege. But beneath it, something sour lingered. The tension of glances, the calculation of who belonged and who did not. Naomi felt it before she sat down. Seat 1A. Her name glowing faintly on the headrest display. She placed her tablet in the side pocket, adjusted her carry-on beneath the seat, and folded her hands in her lap. Across the aisle, a white couple whispered. Their eyes darted toward her, then quickly away. Naomi could almost hear their thoughts. Asterisk, she must have upgraded. She does not look the part. Asterisk, she had seen that look before, at hotels, restaurants, boardrooms, even universities where she gave endowments. It was the look that asked for proof before respect. Amanda leaned over the divider, her perfume sweet and artificial. "Can I offer you something to drink before takeoff?" she asked. Naomi looked up, her voice calm. "A glass of water, please." Amanda's smile tightened. "Of course. Water." She turned and whispered something to Brian, who chuckled as he reached for a tray. The exchange was quick, but Naomi noticed everything. The smirk, the tone, the practiced dismissal that lived in their muscles like memory. Behind them, the trainee, Maya Tran, stood by the galley door, eyes darting between her senior attendants and the passenger they were trying to belittle. Her hands fidgeted with the hem of her jacket, uncertain whether to intervene again. The intercom crackled. The captain's voice came through, cheerful and detached. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard Skyjet Flight 228 to Los Angeles. Flight time is approximately 5 hours and 12 minutes. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your flight." The words washed over the cabin like a script everyone had memorized, but no one believed. Naomi took a slow breath, watching condensation bead on her untouched glass of water. It reminded her of her first flight 15 years ago when she had to borrow money just to attend an investor meeting that changed her life. She had worn her best blazer then, nerves hidden behind determination. The flight attendant on that trip had smiled the same way Amanda did now. Polite on the surface, certain underneath that. Naomi was out of place. The memory was not bitter anymore. It was fuel. She adjusted her seatbelt. A moment later, Amanda returned. "Ma'am, I will need to verify your ticket again before takeoff," she said. Security flagged a possible duplicate record. Naomi looked at her without blinking. "A duplicate," she repeated. "Yes, it happens when people book with someone else's miles. The system does not always catch it until boarding." Amanda's words were honeyed but hollow. Naomi tilted her head slightly. "You scanned my ID. You verified my seat. You printed my boarding pass twice. What exactly do you need to verify?" Brian stepped in now, tall, confident, carrying an iPad like a badge. "It is just protocol, ma'am. We have to make sure everything checks out. A lot of fraud lately." "Fraud," Naomi said, the word lingering like smoke. "Yes," he said, smiling thinly. "No offense, of course." "None taken," she said. Her tone was soft, but her gaze was steady. It made Brian look away first. Maya shifted behind them. "She cleared security already," Maya said quietly. Amanda's jaw tightened. "Maya, please return to the galley." "But now." The younger woman hesitated, then stepped back, her face pale. Naomi watched her go, a silent witness retreating under pressure. Across the aisle, a passenger, a white man in a navy suit, leaned forward. "Everything all right?" he asked Amanda, his voice dripping with false concern. "Do we have a situation?" "No situation," Amanda said, her tone quick and reassuring. "Just a verification issue. We have to be careful these days." The man nodded, satisfied that the system was protecting him from something he did not understand. Naomi's hand rested lightly on her lap. Her nails were short, unpainted. Her calm felt like armor. "Ms. Ellis," Amanda said, glancing at the ticket. "That is right," Naomi replied. "Well, Ms. Ellis, if you cannot provide additional confirmation of purchase, I will need to ask you to disembark so we can sort this out at the gate." The audacity was breathtaking. "You want me to leave the plane," Naomi said slowly, "because you think I do not belong in the seat I paid for." Amanda hesitated, the tiniest flicker of guilt crossing her face before vanishing. "It is just policy." "Policy," Naomi repeated. "Funny how it always seems to apply to people who look like me." The words were not loud, but they carried. A few heads turned. A white woman in 3A lowered her phone. Brian straightened, defensive. "Ma'am, we are not going to argue." "Then do not," Naomi said. She reached for her tablet and opened a secured file. "Because this conversation is already being logged." Amanda blinked. "Logged? What do you mean logged?" Naomi looked up, meeting her eyes. "It means you have 3 minutes before someone calls you to remind you who I am." The smirk on Brian's face faltered. Amanda's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Maya, from the galley, took a small step forward, sensing something shift. "Is there a problem, Ms. Ellis?" she asked, her voice cautious but respectful. "Not yet," Naomi said. "But there will be if this continues." The engines roared to life outside, a low thunder rising beneath the tension in the cabin. Passengers buckled up, pretending not to notice, but their eyes betrayed curiosity. Amanda's headset buzzed. She lifted it to her ear, frowning as she listened. Her face drained of color. Naomi took a sip of her water, still cold, still untouched by the chaos around her. "Problem?" she asked. Amanda shook her head, stammering, "Just a systems check." Naomi nodded once. "Good. Because in about 5 minutes, your systems are going to look very different." The words were soft, almost kind, but they carried the weight of certainty. For the first time that evening, Amanda stepped back. The balance of power had begun to tilt, quietly, irrevocably. The engines began to hum louder as the cabin lights dimmed to a soft amber glow. Amanda stood frozen near the front galley, headset pressed to her ear, listening to a voice that made her expression shift from irritation to something closer to fear. Dr. Naomi Ellis remained seated, calm, hands folded on her lap, every movement measured. The hum of whispered conversations rippled through the cabin. It was the kind of quiet that came before a storm, when the air feels too still to trust. Naomi looked out the small, oval window. Rain streaks crawled across the glass, thin and fast under the floodlights outside. "We are still waiting for clearance," Amanda said finally, her voice a little higher than usual as she turned to Brian. He frowned. "Clearance? We are good to go." Amanda shook her head, still clutching her headset. "No, someone just called from corporate," she murmured. They want verification. Brian rolled his eyes. Corporate never calls before takeoff. You are hearing things. But Naomi's gaze told him otherwise. She did not need to say a word. Her silence made more noise than any accusation. Amanda's radio buzzed again. This time, Brian caught a few words. Internal escalation, flight flagged, executive notice. His smile faded. He leaned closer to Amanda, whispering, "What did you do?" Amanda whispered back, "I do not know." But they both knew exactly what had happened. Maya stood by the beverage cart, gripping the counter to steady her nerves. She could feel the tension like static. Naomi's composure was unshakable, but everyone else was beginning to fray. "Excuse me," Naomi said softly, her tone so even that it silenced the nearest row. "Before we continue, I would like to know the name of your captain." Amanda blinked, unsure how to respond. "Captain Pierce," she said slowly. "Daniel Pierce." "Good," Naomi replied. "Please let Captain Pierce know that this flight has been placed under executive review. He will understand what that means." Amanda hesitated. "Ma'am, I do not know what you are talking about." Naomi's lips curved into a small, patient smile. "You will." The intercom crackled again, but this time it was Captain Pierce himself. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be experiencing a brief delay before departure. Please remain seated as we finalize a verification request from operations." His tone was calm, but the undercurrent of unease was unmistakable. Amanda's face turned pale. Brian muttered, "How does she have operations access?" Naomi said nothing. She simply reached for her phone, tapped the screen twice, and set it face down on the tray table. A small notification light blinked, one that connected her directly to her assistant, Janelle Reed, miles away at Ellis Aerospace headquarters. Janelle's voice came through Naomi's discreet earpiece. "Dr. Ellis, Skyjet Corporate just confirmed your escalation. They are reviewing the crew's conduct in real time." Naomi replied quietly, "Let it run." "Understood, ma'am," Janelle said. "Would you like me to inform the Skyjet board?" Naomi paused, eyes still on Amanda. "Not yet. Let them reveal themselves first." Across the aisle, passengers shifted uncomfortably. Some sensed the shift in power, but did not understand it. Others filmed quietly, phones tilted just enough to capture the scene without drawing attention. Amanda leaned toward Brian, whispering harshly, "We need to control this before it gets out of hand." Brian glanced at Naomi, who sat poised like a judge waiting for the defendant to speak. "You mean before she controls it," he said. Amanda exhaled sharply. "We did not do anything wrong." "Then why does it feel like we did?" Brian muttered. Naomi took her glass of water, now room temperature, and placed it carefully on the tray. "I asked for verification earlier," she said calmly, turning her gaze to Amanda. "You refused. You tore my ticket. You suggested I sit where I belong. I am giving you a chance to correct that before the record becomes permanent." Amanda opened her mouth, but the captain's door swung open. Captain Daniel Pierce stepped into the aisle, tall, confident, his pilot's uniform immaculate. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his tone firm but wary. Amanda straightened instantly. "Just a minor confusion, sir." "The passenger here," Naomi interrupted, her voice low but commanding. "Dr. Ellis. Please use my full name." The captain blinked, thrown off. "Dr. Ellis," he repeated. "I understand there has been a misunderstanding." Naomi's eyes were calm, but her words were precise. "Yes, there has. And it started with your staff deciding who belongs in this cabin based on appearance rather than record." The captain glanced at Amanda, whose face flushed pink. "That is not true," Amanda stammered. Naomi raised a hand slightly, stopping her mid-sentence. "Do not defend bias as protocol. It insults everyone's intelligence." The line hit like a gavel strike. Even the passengers holding their phones stopped breathing for a moment. The captain straightened his tie, uneasy. "Ma'am, I am sure no one intended to. Intent," Naomi said, cutting him off again, "does not erase impact." The air thickened. Every word she spoke carried the weight of 20 years of being questioned, doubted, dismissed. "I have spent my life building the very systems that keep this aircraft safe," she continued. "Yet the people working inside it think I cannot afford a seat on it. That is not policy, Captain. That is prejudice." Silence. Pure, unbroken silence. The captain looked down, unsure how to respond. Maya, near the galley, whispered to herself, "She built the system." Amanda turned sharply. What did you say? Maya stepped forward this time, courage overtaking fear. I said she built the system. I know who she is. I looked her up after the gate. She is on the list of Skyjet executive investors. Amanda froze. Brian took a step back. Passengers began to whisper audibly now, the tension fracturing into awe and shame. Naomi looked directly at the captain. You can confirm that if you like. Call your operations director. Ask who chairs your Safety Innovation Council. The captain did not move. His headset crackled. He lifted it, listened for a few seconds, then slowly lowered it. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. Dr. Ellis, they just confirmed it. Amanda's lips parted, disbelief washing over her features. Naomi leaned back slightly, her composure unbroken. Then perhaps now we can begin this flight in dignity, she said. Or, she added, her tone dropping just slightly, we can continue this conversation with the board of directors, who are now watching this in real time. The captain's jaw tightened. You mean, Naomi said, that your cameras are active, your intercoms are recorded, and every word of this conversation is being archived for corporate compliance. Amanda's face drained completely of color. Brian's hands fell to his sides. Maya, still near the galley, whispered, Oh my God. Naomi folded her hands again, eyes steady. This is not about humiliation. It is about correction. I asked for professionalism. I received prejudice. Now I will restore balance. The captain nodded slowly, realizing he had no control left. Understood, Dr. Ellis. Naomi turned her gaze to the window once more. The rain had stopped. The runway lights shimmered like distant stars. Then let us begin, she said softly. The engines roared louder. Outside, the tarmac gleamed. Inside, the truth had already taken off. The plane door sealed with a heavy thud, and the cabin lights dimmed once more. Captain Pierce returned to the cockpit without a word, his authority suddenly fragile. Amanda stood motionless in the aisle, the color gone from her face. Brian leaned against the galley wall, trying to appear calm, but failing miserably. Maya, the trainee, kept her eyes fixed on Naomi Ellis as if silently asking permission to breathe. The first-class cabin, once a temple of quiet luxury, now felt like a courtroom waiting for a verdict. Naomi reached into her jacket pocket, her movements deliberate and composed. She retrieved a slim black tablet, powered it on, and opened an app labeled Protocol 7. The screen glowed faintly in the low cabin light. Amanda saw it and frowned. Ma'am, what are you doing? Naomi's voice remained soft, even serene. I am activating an internal compliance log. Everything said or done on this aircraft is now under audit. Brian scoffed. You cannot just record us. Naomi turned her head slightly, meeting his eyes. I am not recording you, she said. Your airline is. That single line sent a ripple of unease down the aisle. From behind, a man in 2C whispered to his wife. This is unbelievable. Naomi heard him, but did not react. Instead, she tapped a single key on the tablet. A chime sounded, a quiet tone that only those nearby could hear. Amanda flinched at the sound. Ma'am, please stop. Naomi interrupted, still calm. You have had 3 opportunities to do the right thing. Each one you dismissed. Now, accountability has entered the cabin. The words carried a gravity that silenced everyone. Maya took a small step forward. Dr. Ellis, she whispered. I am sorry for what happened at the gate. I should have said something sooner. Naomi turned to her, expression softening. You did say something, Maya. You spoke truth, even when they told you not to. That is the difference between silence and complicity. Maya's lips parted in quiet shock. She had expected reprimand, not grace. Thank you, she murmured. Naomi nodded once. Courage is contagious. The intercom crackled again. The captain's voice returned, tighter now. Ladies and gentlemen, we will experience a further delay as we confirm clearance from corporate operations. Please remain seated. The announcement sounded routine to anyone else, but everyone in first class knew what it meant. The airline was scrambling. Amanda forced a smile, the kind trained over years of customer service and control. Thank you for your patience, everyone. We will be in the air shortly. Her tone quivered at the end. Naomi lifted her tablet slightly, reading a line of text that had just appeared. It was from Janelle Reed. Asterisk Corporate Compliance and Ethics Division is now live streaming your flight feed. Do you wish to proceed with documentation? Asterisk Naomi typed one word. Proceed. The response came instantly. Asterisk acknowledged. Recording initiated. Crew conduct review pending. Asterisk Brian caught a glimpse of the reflection on her tablet screen and turned pale. You are serious, he muttered. Naomi looked up, unblinking. Deadly serious. Across the aisle, passengers shifted uncomfortably. Some seemed thrilled to witness a reckoning in real time. Others looked terrified to be part of it. Amanda tried to regain composure, her voice trembling only slightly. Dr. Ellis, perhaps we can resolve this quietly once we land. Naomi tilted her head. You mean privately? Behind closed doors. Where accountability goes to die. Amanda's throat tightened. That is not what I meant. But it is what you said, Naomi replied, her tone soft but slicing. The cabin fell silent again. Even the hum of the engines seemed to fade. Naomi placed her tablet back on the tray table, folding her hands once more. When I was 24, she said, her voice lowering, I was denied entry into a business lounge because the clerk thought I had stolen the membership card. I was tired, wearing a suit that did not fit perfectly, and carrying a backpack instead of a briefcase. I said nothing then. I walked away. But I promised myself that the next time someone mistook silence for weakness, I would remind them what strength sounds like. Her words did not rise in volume, but they filled the space with weight. Passengers listened, transfixed. Amanda looked down at her polished shoes. Brian avoided her gaze entirely. Naomi continued, I do not want apologies. I want awareness. You did not just doubt my ticket. You doubted my existence in this space. And that, Ms. Amanda, is the exact disease this industry was built to cure, but has chosen to ignore. The power in her voice was not anger, it was clarity. The kind that dismantles excuses without raising its tone. Maya whispered, almost to herself, this should be training material. Naomi heard it and smiled faintly. It will be, she said, for every Skyjet employee from this day forward. Amanda finally spoke, her voice cracking. Dr. Ellis, please. I was only doing my job. Naomi turned toward her, not cruelly, but truthfully. Your job is service, not suspicion. The words landed like thunder wrapped in silk. Amanda's eyes watered. Brian shifted his weight, his confidence evaporating. The captain's voice came through again, quieter now, almost deferential. Dr. Ellis, this is Captain Pierce. We have just received confirmation from the board that you are cleared to make any directive regarding this crew's status. How would you like to proceed? Naomi exhaled slowly, not in relief, but in purpose. We will handle this with transparency, she said. Continue flight operations, but document every interaction from this moment until landing. This is no longer a routine flight. It is a case study. The captain paused before replying. Understood, Dr. Ellis. Naomi looked around the cabin. Every face was turned toward her now, no longer with suspicion, but with awe. She took one last sip of her water and said quietly, the truth is airborne now, and there is no landing it. The engines roared to full power, the plane began to taxi, and every passenger understood that they were no longer witnesses to a simple delay. They were watching a system unravel midair. The plane lifted into the darkening sky, its engines steady and powerful, a metallic heart beating through the silence that filled the cabin. Every passenger could feel the shift that had taken place, something unseen, yet undeniable. Dr. Naomi Ellis sat perfectly still, eyes closed for a moment as if grounding herself between past and present. The same hum of the engines had carried her through hundreds of flights, but tonight it sounded different. It sounded like vindication waiting for its cue. Amanda moved mechanically through the aisles, her once confident stride replaced by hesitation. Her hands trembled as she adjusted her uniform, glancing often toward Naomi, but never meeting her eyes. Brian stayed near the galley, whispering with the captain through the intercom, his face pale under the fluorescent lights. Maya, the trainee, stood by the beverage cart, her nerves taut but her gaze steady. She was no longer the timid observer. She was watching justice unfold. Naomi opened her eyes slowly and turned toward the window, watching the clouds part beneath the moonlight. The reflection of her own face stared back at her, calm but alert. She remembered another night years ago, a late flight from Dallas to New York, when a flight attendant had called her sweetheart and offered her a complimentary upgrade to coach comfort, assuming she could not afford business class. She had smiled politely back then, swallowing the insult. Tonight, there would be no swallowing. There would be clarity. Amanda's voice cracked through the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned off the seatbelt sign. We will begin our in-flight service shortly. Her tone was thin, rehearsed, missing the usual authority. Naomi looked up when she heard a soft knock against her armrest. Maya stood there, holding a fresh glass of water. For you, Dr. Ellis, she said gently. Naomi nodded. Thank you. Maya. The young woman hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course, Naomi said. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. How do you stay so calm when people treat you like that? Naomi studied her face. The uncertainty, the quiet ache of someone who had already seen too much. Calm is not the absence of anger, she said softly. It is the mastery of it. I learned that the hard way. Maya frowned slightly. How? Naomi's eyes softened as the memory surfaced. When I was 16, I was in a hotel lobby waiting for my parents. I was dressed for church, sitting quietly. A clerk walked up and told me to leave because this area is for guests only. I tried to explain, but she did not listen. She called security, and I was escorted out. That feeling of being erased in plain sight, it never really leaves you. It grows with you, hides in your bones, and waits for its moment. Tonight was that moment. Maya's eyes glistened. I am sorry, she said. Do not be, Naomi replied. Just remember, when you are in uniform, you represent more than policy. You represent choice. You can choose to see, or you can choose to look away. That is the line between service and complicity. Maya nodded slowly, the weight of the lesson sinking in. Amanda approached, trying to reassert control. Maya, I need you to return to the galley now, she said sharply. You have already exceeded your training duties. But Maya did not move. With respect, Ms. Amanda, I am assisting a passenger, she said quietly. Amanda's expression hardened. You are assisting someone who is trying to destroy your career. Naomi turned her head slightly, her gaze calm, but commanding. No, Amanda, she said. She is protecting it. Amanda's jaw tightened. You do not get to come in here and humiliate us. I did not humiliate you, Naomi replied evenly. Your choices did. Brian appeared from the galley, his voice defensive. Dr. Ellis, you are taking this too far. We were following protocol. Protocol, Naomi repeated, her tone slicing through the air. Protocol does not require tearing up tickets or questioning identities. It does not require treating passengers like intruders. You did that, not your rulebook. Her words left no room for rebuttal. The passengers in the front rows shifted, whispering quietly among themselves. One woman muttered, "She is right." Under her breath. Amanda glared at her, but said nothing. Naomi leaned back in her seat, her voice low but steady. Every time I walk into a space like this, someone tries to decide if I belong. They measure me by my clothes, my tone, my skin, anything but my merit. And every time, I let them underestimate me. Because when they do, they reveal themselves. The captain's door opened slightly, and Captain Pierce stepped out again. His composure was gone, replaced by caution. Dr. Ellis, he said, corporate communications has requested an incident report from this flight immediately upon landing. They are reviewing everything as we speak. Naomi nodded once. They should. Ma'am, he continued. I would like to apologize personally for the way my crew treated you. Naomi studied him carefully. Apologies mean nothing without accountability, Captain. What actions will follow? The captain hesitated, then replied. They will face review. Naomi's eyes narrowed slightly. Review is not consequence. The captain's shoulders dropped. I understand. Naomi's gaze softened, just enough to temper the sting. Do you? She asked quietly. Because understanding means change. It means looking at your system and asking why the same kind of people keep getting hurt in the same kind of way. He nodded, speechless. Naomi turned back to her tablet, where a new message had appeared from Janelle Reed. Footage has been verified. Board has joined livestream. Awaiting directive. Naomi typed a short reply. Stand by for action upon descent. Amanda's voice wavered behind her. Dr. Ellis, please, we can talk about this after we land. Naomi's response was calm, but unyielding. No, Amanda. You will listen now. Because this is not just about me. It is about every passenger you have ever judged before they spoke. The cabin was silent. Even the engines seemed to listen. You thought I was nobody, Naomi said, her voice lowering. But I am the reminder that nobody is invisible. A flicker of turbulence rattled the cabin, but Naomi remained still, her words steadier than the plane itself. Amanda looked as if she might cry. Maya stood straighter. The captain retreated to the cockpit. And Naomi, watching the horizon beyond the glass, whispered so softly that only Maya heard her. This is what justice sounds like when it finally finds its voice. The plane soared higher, cutting through clouds like truth through denial. Clean, unstoppable, and finally seen. The aircraft sliced through the night sky, cruising at 37,000 feet, but the air inside the cabin felt heavier than gravity itself. The soft glow from the overhead lights cast long shadows across the aisle, stretching like silent witnesses to everything that had unfolded. Dr. Naomi Ellis sat in seat 1A, her reflection faint against the window, her expression composed but unreadable. Her phone buzzed softly beside her tablet. She picked it up, glancing at the message from Janelle Reed. Asterisk corporate confirms activation of internal audit. All communications routed through your live protocol. Do you wish to proceed with disciplinary action in flight? Asterisk Naomi typed one word. Affirmative. Janelle's response came instantly. Asterisk acknowledged. Legal and ethics teams on standby. Asterisk she set the phone face down and exhaled slowly, the weight of her own restraint anchoring her to the seat. Across the aisle, Amanda was whispering furiously to Brian, her voice sharp but shaky. This cannot be real. There is no way she has that kind of access. Brian shook his head. Then explained why the captain just called from the cockpit and said corporate is monitoring. Someone at headquarters confirmed her authority. Amanda's voice dropped lower. If this goes on record, we are done. They will fire all of us. Brian's jaw clenched. Then we fix it before she lands. Naomi did not have to hear every word to know what they were plotting. She had seen it before. People scrambling to save themselves instead of learning from the wreckage they caused. Maya approached quietly, offering Naomi a blanket. It is getting cold, Dr. Ellis. Naomi smiled faintly. Thank you, Maya. The young attendant hesitated, her voice trembling. Are they really in trouble? No, Naomi said gently. They are in a moment of truth. What they do with it decides everything. Maya nodded, unsure whether to feel pity or fear for her superiors. Naomi adjusted the blanket around her lap and looked toward the front of the cabin. Amanda had walked away, disappearing behind the curtain into the galley. Brian remained by the intercom, pretending to check something on his tablet. Naomi tapped her own screen and accessed the live flight interface, a tool available only to senior executive shareholders of the airline. The interface displayed crew status, cabin activity, and compliance logs. A flashing notification appeared, crew behavioral report in progress. She selected it, reading line after line of timestamp data. Every recorded statement. Since the boarding gate. Every image from the cabin cameras. Every word she had spoken. The evidence was no longer verbal. It was digital, permanent, undeniable. Amanda reappeared a few minutes later, forcing a smile. Dr. Ellis, may I offer you something to eat? We have a new menu prepared for first class tonight. Naomi did not look up. Is this your way of extending courtesy or of rewriting history? Amanda froze. No, ma'am. Naomi finally turned to her, eyes calm but steady. Apology served with service is still apology. Sit. Amanda blinked, unsure she had heard correctly. Excuse me. Sit. Naomi repeated, her tone soft but absolute. Amanda slowly lowered herself into the empty seat beside Naomi, clutching her hands together. The hum of the engines filled the silence. Naomi leaned slightly closer. You see, Amanda, people think discrimination only lives in anger. But it hides better in manners. In the way you smile when you do not mean it. In the way you assume before you ask. You did not raise your voice when you humiliated me at the gate, but your certainty did the shouting for you. Amanda's eyes welled up. I did not mean to offend you. Naomi tilted her head slightly. You did not have to mean it. You only had to do it. The words hit harder than any accusation. Brian stepped forward, frowning. Dr. Ellis, this is getting personal. Naomi turned her gaze to him. It became personal when you laughed as she tore my ticket. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Naomi's phone buzzed again. A new message from Janelle. Asterisk board has requested formal response now. They will observe direct communication if you authorize visual feed. Naomi typed. Authorize feed. Within seconds, a small light blinked near the cabin cameras. The system was live. Corporate eyes were now inside this plane. Naomi leaned back, her tone calm, yet resonant. Amanda, Brian, you are being observed by Skyjet's executive board at this very moment. I suggest you speak truthfully. This is your opportunity to account for your actions. Amanda's face went pale. Right now? Naomi nodded. Right now. Brian swallowed hard. What do you want us to say? The truth, Naomi said. Starting with why. Amanda's voice cracked. Why what? Why you looked at me and decided I did not belong. Amanda's lips trembled. I do not know. I saw the ticket, I saw your clothes, and I assumed. Assumed what? Naomi pressed. That I could not afford the seat? Amanda looked down. Yes. Naomi nodded slowly. You see? Honesty does not cost as much as arrogance. Brian exhaled loudly, frustration boiling over. You are acting like you have never made a mistake. Naomi turned toward him, her tone unflinching. I have made many, but I have never mistaken someone's worth for their wardrobe. The cabin fell silent again. Even the passengers who had tried to pretend disinterest were now watching openly. One woman muttered, about time someone said it. Naomi tapped her tablet again. The screen displayed the live stream confirmation. Asterisk transmission in progress. Board acknowledgement received. Asterisk Amanda, Naomi said, her voice softening. I am not your enemy, but I am your mirror, and you are seeing yourself clearly for the first time. Amanda covered her mouth, tears spilling freely now. I am sorry, she whispered. I believe you, Naomi said. But belief is not change. Change begins when apology becomes policy. The captain's voice broke through the intercom again, slower now, careful. Dr. Ellis, this is Captain Pierce. We have received direct communication from the board. They are requesting your final directive regarding the crew. Naomi took a long breath, her reflection still in the window, her expression unwavering. Captain, she said, you may inform them that we will be landing on schedule. Upon arrival, the crew in question will be met by corporate compliance. Suspension will be immediate pending termination review. The captain paused. Understood, Dr. Ellis. Naomi ended the transmission, then turned back to Amanda and Brian. You wanted to fix this before I landed, she said quietly. Now you will learn that some lessons do not wait for the ground. Outside, lightning flickered across the horizon, bright, fleeting, and absolute. Inside, Naomi Ellis sat still, her calm no longer mistaken for weakness but recognized for what it truly was. Control earned through every injustice she had survived. The plane soared on, but the hierarchy inside it had already fallen. The lights dimmed as the aircraft began its descent toward Los Angeles International Airport, the horizon painted with streaks of amber and deep blue. Passengers adjusted their seats and fastened their belts, unaware that history was unfolding 20 rows ahead. Dr. Naomi Ellis sat upright, her tablet still open on the tray table, the glow reflecting against her composed expression. The message from Janelle Reed appeared on the screen. Asterisk corporate confirms your directive. Compliance agents will meet Flight 228 upon arrival. Legal observers are on site. Asterisk Naomi read it once, then powered the device off. It was done, but the silence that followed was not relief, it was reckoning. Amanda remained seated across from her, eyes red, hands clasped so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. Brian sat behind her, his face drained of color, staring blankly at the seat back ahead. Maya stood near the galley, too nervous to sit, too compelled to look away. Naomi turned her head slowly toward Amanda. This is not how I wanted to spend my evening, she said. But life has a way of forcing lessons into moments we never planned for. Amanda swallowed hard, her voice barely audible. Dr. Ellis, I do not know what to say. Then say nothing, Naomi replied softly. Silence is better than pretending to understand. The seatbelt light flickered on as the captain's voice came through the intercom, steady but formal. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Pierce. We are beginning our final descent into Los Angeles. Please remain seated until the aircraft comes to a complete stop. On behalf of Skyjet Airlines, we thank you for choosing us. The irony hung heavy in the air. Naomi's calm gaze shifted toward the window. City lights stretched below like veins of gold, beautiful and distant. Her reflection merged with the view, one image of control and consequence. Amanda's headset crackled, startling her. She pressed it to her ear, nodding slowly. Her voice trembled as she relayed the message to Brian. Compliance officers will board immediately upon arrival. Brian rubbed his forehead, whispering, "We are done." Naomi heard it, but said nothing. She leaned slightly toward Maya instead. "Remember what I told you, Maya? Service is about recognition. You recognized injustice when others called it procedure. That is why you will not end where they do." Maya blinked, unsure what to say. "Thank you, Dr. Ellis." Naomi smiled faintly. "Do not thank me. Earn it." Led differently. As the aircraft dipped lower, turbulence rattled the cabin lightly. Amanda clutched the armrest, her voice cracking. "Dr. Ellis, will they really fire us?" Naomi turned to her, her tone firm but not cruel. "They will decide based on what you did, not what you feel. Accountability is not cruelty, it is correction." Amanda nodded weakly, tears threatening again. "I never thought one mistake could destroy everything." Naomi shook her head. "It was not one mistake, Amanda. It was a pattern. Tonight just happened to be the moment someone refused to play along." The engines roared louder as the plane approached the runway. Passengers began murmuring softly, sensing something unusual but not knowing the scale of what they had witnessed. Naomi closed her eyes for a brief moment, her mind slipping back to a memory she had tried to bury. She was 25, sitting outside an investor's office after being told her pitch was too ambitious. The man who rejected her had smiled kindly, the way people do when they are confident you will fail. That night, she stayed up rewriting her proposal line by line until dawn. The next morning, another investor said yes. That was the birth of Ellis Aerospace. Every no she had ever received had built the empire she now commanded. Every dismissal had shaped her discipline. The plane touched down with a jolt, tires screeching softly against the runway. The cabin filled with a mix of sighs and unspoken tension. The captain's voice returned, carefully composed. "Welcome to Los Angeles. For your safety, please remain seated. Corporate representatives will be boarding momentarily." Naomi looked up as Amanda began unfastening her belt, her hands trembling. "Stay seated," Naomi said quietly. "This is not the time to flee." Amanda froze, realizing she had been caught trying to leave before the reckoning began. Within moments, the sound of the front cabin door opening filled the air. 3 uniformed compliance officers stepped aboard, 2 men and 1 woman, their expressions unreadable. Passengers whispered as they entered, their curiosity piquing. "Are those police?" someone asked. Naomi remained still, her gaze unwavering. The lead officer, a woman with a silver badge pinned neatly to her lapel, approached Naomi first. "Dr. Ellis?" she asked. Naomi nodded. "Yes. Corporate confirmed your directive. We are here to proceed with immediate suspension of involved personnel." The officer turned to Amanda and Brian. "You will surrender your credentials now." Amanda's lips parted in disbelief. "Now? In front of everyone." Naomi's voice cut through quietly but firmly. "Public humiliation is not the goal, Amanda. Transparency is." Brian hesitated, then unpinned his badge and handed it over. Amanda followed, her hands shaking as she unclipped her name tag. The officer placed both items in an envelope, sealed it, and gave a curt nod. "They will be escorted for debriefing and legal review upon disembarkation." Maya watched silently, her expression a mix of empathy and relief. Naomi met her eyes and gave a subtle nod, as if to say, "This is what truth looks like when it stops asking permission." The officer turned back to Naomi. "Corporate requested confirmation that the matter has been resolved to your satisfaction." Naomi exhaled softly. "Satisfaction is not the word," she said. "Resolution is enough." The officer nodded once and stepped back. Passengers sat in stunned silence. A man in 3C murmured to his wife, "That woman just fired the crew midair." Naomi overheard but did not react. Instead, she reached for her bag beneath the seat and stood gracefully. "Maya," she said, "please inform the captain I will deplane last." "Yes, Dr. Ellis," Maya said quickly. As the other passengers began to gather their belongings, Amanda turned toward Naomi one last time. "Dr. Ellis," she said softly, "I will never forget this." Naomi paused, meeting her eyes. "Good," she replied. "That is the point." The engines powered down, and the cabin lights brightened. The door opened wider, letting in the noise of the terminal, a mix of announcements, laughter, and oblivious normalcy. But inside the aircraft, it was silent. Naomi picked up her things and looked toward the aisle where Amanda and Brian had once stood so confidently. They were gone now, escorted quietly into the night. Justice, it seemed, did not need to shout to be heard. It only needed someone willing to speak clearly. Naomi turned to Maya once more. "Tell your next passenger," she said. "That service begins with respect." Then she walked down the aisle, steady, unhurried, leaving behind not just a flight, but a lesson carved into the sky itself. The jet bridge connected to the aircraft with a soft metallic thud, followed by the hiss of pressurized air releasing through the cabin. The passengers rose slowly, collecting their belongings with cautious glances toward the front of the plane, where the compliance officers still stood. The air was thick with tension and curiosity. No one dared to speak above a whisper. Dr. Naomi Ellis remained seated, allowing the others to pass first. She had no reason to rush. Power, she knew, never moved in haste. Maya approached her gently, clutching a clipboard to her chest. "Dr. Ellis," she said softly, "the officers have cleared the aisle. You can disembark when ready." Naomi nodded, rising from her seat with quiet composure. She adjusted her jacket, picked up her bag, and looked around the cabin one last time. The space that had once been a scene of humiliation was now an empty theater of consequence. Amanda and Brian were gone. Their absence spoke louder than any apology could. Naomi walked toward the exit, her steps slow but certain. The remaining passengers parted instinctively, some offering subtle nods of respect, others lowering their eyes, humbled by what they had witnessed. One woman whispered, "That was the calmest storm I have ever seen." Naomi paused at the doorway where Captain Pierce stood waiting, his hat in hand, his face drawn with regret. "Dr. Ellis," he began, his voice low, "I cannot change what happened, but I can promise it will never happen again on my watch." Naomi regarded him for a moment before responding. "Promises are fragile things, Captain. Protect them with proof." The captain nodded solemnly. "Yes, ma'am." Naomi extended a hand. He shook it firmly, his expression one of respect and relief. "Good night, Captain," she said. "Good night, Dr. Ellis," he replied. As she stepped into the jet bridge, the cool airport air met her face, sharp and grounding. Janelle Reed's voice came through her earpiece immediately. "Dr. Ellis, I just watched the live feed. The board is preparing a formal statement. The footage has already been flagged by the media team. It will go public soon." Naomi's tone was steady. "Make sure the narrative is accurate. This is not revenge, it is reform." "Understood," Janelle replied. "Would you like me to meet you at the terminal?" "No," Naomi said. "I will walk alone." The terminal was quiet, almost serene for the hour. The rhythmic sound of her heels echoed against the polished floor. Travelers passed without recognizing her, unaware that the woman walking beside them had just rewritten the company's internal code of conduct midair. A security officer stationed near the gate gave her a respectful nod. "Evening, ma'am," he said. Naomi returned it politely. At the far end of the terminal, a large window overlooked the runway. She stopped there, placing her bag down and gazing out at the city lights stretching endlessly beneath the night sky. Planes taxied in. The distance, their navigation lights blinking like silent acknowledgments. Janelle's voice returned through the earpiece. "The compliance team just confirmed. Amanda Hayes and Brian Turner are suspended indefinitely pending termination review. The captain will retain command after completing sensitivity retraining. Maya Tran has been promoted to full flight attendant status effective immediately." Naomi allowed herself a quiet breath, not of triumph, but of equilibrium restored. "Make sure Maya receives the support she deserves," she said. "She acted with integrity when silence was safer." "Already noted," Janelle replied. "And Dr. Ellis, the board wants to commend you for handling this personally." Naomi's eyes remained on the runway. "They should not commend me. They should ask why I had to." There was a pause on the line. "Understood," Janelle said finally. Naomi ended the call and stood there in silence. Her reflection shimmered faintly against the glass, superimposed over the vastness beyond. For years she had built machines that could defy gravity, engines that carried thousands safely through the air. Yet tonight reminded her that the hardest thing to lift was still human perception, the kind that grounded people before they ever had a chance to rise. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her ID card, the same one Amanda had once doubted could belong to her. She studied the silver letters of her name, then slid it back into her jacket. Behind her, a janitor pushed a cleaning cart, pausing briefly to recognize her face from the unfolding news on his phone. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said quietly. "That was you on the plane, right? You handled that with real class." Naomi smiled gently. "Thank you. Sometimes dignity is the loudest response." He nodded with quiet admiration. "The world needs more people like you." Naomi picked up her bag and began walking again, her steps steady, her resolve unshaken. As she disappeared into the terminal's long corridor, the hum of departing planes filled the air, a reminder that movement, once started by truth, never really stops. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of the Skyjet corporate headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. The air was calm, but the atmosphere inside the boardroom was anything but ordinary. Dr. Naomi Ellis stood at the head of a long oak conference table, her posture straight, her tone composed, her presence commanding without effort. The board of directors sat in silence, each member glancing at the other, unsure whether to speak first. A large screen behind Naomi displayed a still image from the incident aboard Flight 228. Amanda frozen mid-sentence, Naomi seated in quiet control. The footage had gone viral overnight, shared across every major news outlet. Headlines read, "Black woman CEO restores justice at 30,000 feet. Naomi's voice broke the silence. "We have spent years perfecting technology to keep our passengers safe, but not nearly enough time perfecting the culture that greets them when they board our planes." What happened on Flight 228 was not an isolated failure. It was the reflection of a system that confuses professionalism with prejudice. Her words carried no anger, only precision. A senior board member cleared his throat. "Dr. Ellis, the company has issued a public apology. The crew involved has been suspended pending termination. Do you consider this matter closed?" Naomi's gaze was steady. "Closed? No. Corrected? Not yet. You cannot fix what you refuse to face. And until accountability becomes part of our DNA, incidents like this will not stop. They will just change faces." Another director spoke softly. "You turned what could have been a lawsuit into a lesson. We owe you more than thanks." Naomi shook her head. "You owe the passengers more than apologies. Build a company that no longer asks people to prove they belong." For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioner and the quiet tap of Naomi's pen against her folder. Finally, she set it down and said, "Effective immediately, I am creating a new division within Skyjet, an Equity and Conduct Council. It will report directly to the board and will oversee all cases of discrimination, guest profiling, and internal misconduct. Every complaint will be investigated, no exceptions." The chairman nodded slowly. "Consider it approved." Naomi's expression softened slightly. "Good. Then let us begin again." Hours later, as she stepped out of the building, the California air felt lighter. The media had gathered outside, microphones raised, cameras flashing, reporters calling her name. Naomi stopped just long enough to address them. "What happened on Flight 228 was not about revenge," she said. "It was about responsibility. Accountability is not cruelty, it is care. Every person deserves to travel without being judged by their appearance, their accent, or their history." I did not raise my voice that night. I raised the standard. The crowd grew quiet. For a long moment, no one shouted another question. They simply listened. Naomi smiled politely, nodded once, and continued walking toward her waiting car. Inside, she exhaled deeply, her reflection glinting against the tinted window. Janelle's voice came through the speakerphone. "Dr. Ellis, your statement is trending globally. Thousands of comments. People are calling you the calmest CEO in America." Naomi chuckled softly. "Calm is just focus disguised as grace." "The board wants to know what you plan next," Janelle said. Naomi looked out at the skyline. "We are going to teach them that equality is not a policy, it is a practice." As the car merged onto the freeway, she glanced up at a passing plane cutting through the morning light. Its contrail stretched across the sky like a line being rewritten. She smiled faintly. "And that," she whispered, "is how you fly differently." The city stretched ahead, alive and unwittingly changed by one woman's silence that had finally found its sound. The voiceover would fade here, the music soft but resolute, carrying Naomi's final words like a quiet anthem. Dignity does not need permission. Justice does not need volume. And power does not always roar. It simply arrives.